What defines a heart for youth? Find out today on a Heart for Youth podcast.
I want to take a second and talk about Anchor. Anchor is a free podcasting platform that allows you to create podcasts for free and push them out to Apple, Spotify, Google, and all of the major podcasting systems. Best of all, it is free. So go to anchor.fm or download the free Anchor app to get started today.
I'm sitting here today with Dodger Vaughan. Tell me a little about yourself.
Wow. So where to begin? I was born on a stormy night in No, I'm just kidding. We won't go that far back. So I am a campus minister at Ohio University currently. I'm serving with a group called Reach Out on campus. I've been there. This is actually my 6th year of ministry with Reach Out on campus. Did high school and junior high ministry for 9 years on staff at the Middleport Church of Christ. Prior to that, I live here in Pomeroy, Ohio. Lovely Pomeroy, along the banks of the Ohio River, with my wife, Brooke, and my 2 kids, Trey and Ella.
Okay. How did you end up in youth ministry, and how long were you in youth ministry?
So, man, that's a funny question. So I kind of ended up in youth ministry kicking and screaming, if that makes sense. It was much under protest. I argued and wrestled with God on that for a long, long time. And God won, as He, does.
Right.
And so no, actually, let me go back and just mention when I was growing up. Youth ministry was a big part of my life. Honestly, youth ministry and Boy Scouts. I know, John, you were a scout for years. Were 2 big things in my life that really, it shaped who I was as a person. And the people that I met in both of those groups were men and women, actually both that I looked up to a lot. And so, it was just such a formational part of my life, that it was just one of those things I think that was kind of always in the back of my mind as something that I felt, that God was dealing with me on. But I think when I graduated from college, I actually went away to Miami of Ohio to college. And when I came back, my youth minister at the time was Bill Frazier, and Bill called me and he said, "Dodger," he said, we need a youth sponsor, youth chaperone, whatever, for the youth group here. And I was like, I don't know, Bill. I'm just getting back. I'm just out of college, trying to get into a career. Just recently had gotten married prior to that, and so, but Bill was just one of those guys you couldn't tell no. You know what I mean? I could dance around it, I could make excuses, but he wasn't going to accept that I was going to do it. And so he just wore me down. And so eventually I was like, all right, Bill, I'll do it. And I said, what age group am I working with? And he said, middle school. I said, Bill! And he says, what? I said, I can't stand middle schoolers. And, and actually he said, no, Dodge, these guys need you. And so I did it that first year and just loved it. And really after that, couldn't get enough of it. And actually at the time, I was teaching. I don't even know how many people know that I was I had a respectable profession. At one point, I was a teacher. I became a youth minister. But I was teaching actually at Belpre City Schools. And I was working with students there, and I was teaching them business and information technology, and I just remember doing that, as my Monday through Friday gig, and then coming home on the weekends and helping with student ministry, and just feeling like I was missing out on something. I loved working with students in both settings, but in one setting I was fulfilled because we're talking about how to live a life that honors Christ, and what it looks like to follow Him and be a disciple. And in my other gig, I couldn't do that. I could exemplify what that meant and what that looked like, but I couldn't out and out talk about it. And so it just really started pulling me that direction. And so I think I spent from 2000 to 2005 as a youth volunteer at the church for 5 years. Just did it volunteer and loved, again, it was incredible times and experiences. And during that time, Bill left the church to go actually back home. He was from Virginia, and so there was kind of a period of time we didn't have a youth minister, and so me and another guy kind of stood in the gap and, filled in there. And eventually, long story short, church came to me and said, hey, look, what would you think about coming on staff and doing that? So from about 2005 to 2014, I did high school and junior high ministry. And then from 2014 to the present, I work with college students. And you would think, like, oh, college students, so much more mature than high school students and all that. And, like, in a lot of ways, it's a lot more like middle school ministry. All the things that made you happy in middle school make you happy as a college student.
Because you can do what you want.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of a longer take on that. So I was trying to, almost 2 decades now in student ministry.
That's a long time.
Yeah, it feels like it's amazing.
At what point, I guess you kind of touched on this a little bit, but what point did you realize that youth ministry was a passion of yours?
So, it's funny, like I said, it's probably in that time when I was teaching and trying to do that both, that I really felt that tug. Let me back up a little bit and say, when I was in high school, I definitely felt called to do ministry of some type. And, at the time, like, I would go to conferences and retreats, and like the guys that would stand on the stage and speak, I just kind of thought they were, the best thing since sliced bread. And so I thought to myself, like, I want to be one of those guys that would stand up on a stage in front of a bunch of students at a conference or camp like this and lead people to Christ. And, like I still get opportunities to do that, from time to time. But it's funny that the thing that I thought that I wanted to do wasn't where God led me. And I still do that, obviously, still work with students, but, the whole idea of the relationship that you form with the students and taking that, I guess I call it like the long walk with them. Like sometimes you get the students in 6th grade. I know I was name drop Matthew Shiflett. You know Matt.
Yeah.
I met Matt when he was in middle school, and God worked that out where I met him, and so was his minister from the time he was in middle school all the way through the time he graduated from college at Ohio University. And that's just an incredible blessing. I don't even know how many teachers get to have that type of opportunity to walk alongside a student for that period of time. And so I think probably, during that season of working as a volunteer, like God started, shaping my heart into something where I started to think, hey, this is probably what I want to do with my life, not just, on nights and weekends type of thing. Yeah.
I was talking to Chris last episode, and he's talking about like how you've been in there so long that you've seen that the kids that you've had in youth group now have kids that are in
it's
under you.
It's kind of crazy in a lot of ways because like a lot of guys don't have the privilege of being able to serve for so long in the same area. Like ministry being what it is, a lot of times we get called to different churches, different parts of the state, different states in the U.S. So like I've been very, very fortunate in that, like God's kind of placed me here and, like had this, long running, I guess, ministry and like a lot of our leadership right now, adult leadership has came from past students. And that's been an incredible blessing.
Right.
So yeah, it's been really neat. It's been a fun ride.
What would you say your hardest moment in youth ministry was, and how did you overcome it?
So I think, I don't know that I can single out one. I think, anybody who's worked with students for any period of time is going to recognize, like, when students are hurting, as student ministers and leaders, we hurt for them too. When students struggle, like we struggle right alongside of them. And so, but the opposite of that's true too. Like when things are going well and great for a student, like, man, like we're on cloud 9. You can't beat that. So there have been a lot of times, I've had to watch students struggle. And a lot of times, your initial reaction, especially when students are struggling because of choices they've made, is to blame yourself and to go, well, if I taught this better, if I had just, if I had just, had this sermon more, impactful, they would have got it. And it's funny because I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day, and he asked me point blank about that. Like, how do you handle that when students struggle, where there's a moral failure, like decisions they've made that's led them down a path away from Christ? Like, how do you not internalize that and just get defeated? And I said, well, I said, honestly, I did for a long, long time. Like, I used to wear my feelings on my sleeve when it came to that. But, what I've noticed is, I started thinking back to when I was in college, and like, that's kind of my story, my testimony was like, during college was kind of a time that was difficult for me. I won't say like I walked away from my faith, but I was definitely living a lifestyle that was contrary to my faith. And, at no point in time when I was doing those things did I ever think to myself, I wonder what Bill would have thought of this. I knew exactly what Bill thought. I knew what he had taught me and the way that he had raised me up. So that was never a question in my mind. It was just wrestling. It was me and God wrestling with that. And so, I've kind of came to grips with that, and just the whole idea of, we get to love students through these times as well. And like, I know sometimes our initial reaction is like, well, they've walked away, let's wash our hands of them. But like, I think some of the most powerful moments we can have with students is when we walk with them through those times. Like, hey, look, I know the decisions and the choices you've made have led you here. Instead of sitting there and going, like, hey, I told you so. Like, hey, let me just hug you, man. Let me love on you through this. Let me walk with you through this period of your life. So yeah, that was, and generally speaking, those were some difficult times and lessons to learn.
Was there a moment when you felt like, this is working, I'm making a difference in these teens or this group's life?
I think that's funny because that's the roller coaster ride of student ministry, is there's times you feel like this is just firing on all cylinders. This is going exactly the way that I want it. And then you never fail as you get cocky and the wheels fall off, But no, I could definitely point to, a few times when anytime you see a student get it, where it just clicks, or even like you were saying earlier, when a student comes back who says, look, this was such an important part of my life that I want to come back and provide that same opportunity to other students. I think there's those like successes that we hold on to, and those are definitely some highlight moments. Anytime, if you follow me on Facebook, we do a lot of service trips with students,
right.
And I love that because a lot of times you get to see that light go on and some kid go, this is what God created me for. Like, these are the skills and abilities He's given me, and here's how I can honor and glorify Him. And so those moments too, when that kid clicks for a kid and they start to embrace, that God's given them something that they're going to use to build up the kingdom. Like, right. Those moments are huge successes.
Makes you feel like you're on top of the world.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you hold on to those because, again, it's not every day. It really is a roller coaster ride.
Right.
So.
What was one of your greatest memories to date in youth ministry?
Oh man, it's hard to narrow down. I know I'm speaking in such generalities, but like it really is. It's so hard to narrow down. Anytime we get together with students, they're all the time going, hey, do you remember when we went here and we did this? Do you remember when this funny thing happened and you reacted this way? Do you remember we pranked you at Summer in the Sun? And like all those types of things, and just so many fond memories that you share. It's hard to really narrow it down, man. Like, and I think it changes too over the course of your tenure. It's really like right now, a lot of my students are like falling in love and getting married, and like I get to be there at the beginning of that relationship where they're awkward and like, hey, that's a girl in the corner, she's kind of cute, I'm gonna stare at her, and then like they actually start to talk, and then it like progresses, and and like now they're getting married and they're having kids of their own, and so like, yeah, it just again goes back to that long walk in student ministry, and so yeah, like so many of those experiences, man, it's hard to just narrow it down to one, but lots of good times like that. Any trip that we've ever taken with students, and they're out serving, and they get it, and they come back excited and fired up, that's been awesome. Camps, conferences where students like come back, and then like the times we've really seen our groups grow were because like students were fired up and they came back and they brought other students in, and like it's kind of exciting and scary at the same time because your group's growing, and you're going, what do I do with all these extra students, and like how do we stuff them in the church van?
Right.
Hide them in the trunk, don't tell anyone, like that type of thing. So yeah, lots of cool things like that.
So last question, What would you tell somebody who's going into youth ministry as like a youth pastor or just an assistant youth leader?
Yeah, so so much advice, and like so much I think you learn, because like, I mean, I was blessed. I got to do my master's in youth ministry after I graduated from college, and went back and worked on that, and that was an awesome experience. Like for so long, like I really felt like I was lacking training in student ministry, and so went and I did that, and I don't regret that for a heartbeat. But I think one of the things that it taught me was you learn so much more just from being in the trenches and doing it, and you're going to make mistakes. Like that's the thing. Like I have a laundry list of excellent ideas that I thought were going to change the world that failed. But like the thing about students is they're resilient, they're forgiving. And like I think someone told me once before, students are really looking for a couple things. One, they want to see that you're the real deal and that you're consistent. One of the things we've always harped on our volunteers is like, always be consistent. You know what I mean? Like even if that means, you come in every week and you're just there. Like for so many of our students, especially growing up in this area, like, that may be the only consistency they have in their lives, that they know every Wednesday night or every Sunday night, they're going to come in and my youth leader so-and-so, they're going to be there in the corner, they're going to give me a high five, they're going to tell me how much that they love me and they appreciate me and that they're glad that I'm there. That may be the only consistency they get during the week. So, always heard that, like, be real, be authentic, be consistent for them, and then if you could demonstrate to them that you genuinely care about them, that you love them and that you love Jesus, man, like I think that you can make a lot of mistakes. I'm sure you could probably interview some of my former students, and those are usually the stories they tell. Do you remember when Dodger was doing the donut in the church van and almost flipped the church van? That I can neither confirm nor deny that happened. But yeah, they'll tell stories like that. But in the same breath, they'll be like, those were the best times of my life. Like those were the camps that I really got to see God, move in my life and in my heart. And so like, I think if you do those things well, the other things you're going to learn as you go. Not that there's anything wrong with pursuing that education. If there's somebody that really, right now they're in high school or maybe they're in college and thinking about change a career, absolutely go get that education, because it opens a ton of doors for you. And it's just more tools in your tool belt. But, as I was going through that process of getting my master's, I kept thinking, well, once I get my master's, like I'll be a real youth minister. I'll be a real youth minister. And the entire time, I was still working with the students. And anytime we'd go out, the students would be like, hey, that's my youth minister. Hey, and then that's when it clicked for me. Like it's about the relationship. It's about, the position that I'm in and loving and caring for these students. It doesn't have, the students don't care about the degree on the wall. Right. They don't care about like what, theological books you've read or, how well you know adolescent development. They want to know that you care about them, that you're real and that you love Jesus. So
it's good information right there.
Thank you.
So as it's closing, I'd like to give you a chance to talk about Reach Out on Campus here.
Yeah.
What have you been doing there?
So that's also been a really cool ride for us too. Campus ministry was not something that was on my radar at the time. Like I'll be honest, after 9 years of student ministry, I was still loving it. And I know I'm one of the few people, like I know a lot of people, like, and there's nothing wrong with that, look at student ministry as like, hey, this is a stepping stone to being a pulpit preacher. That's fine. But like, that's just never been my heart. Like I've always loved students, loved their enthusiasm and their excitement. But so I was there for 9 years and really had no plans of leaving, like still loving working with, I still love the opportunities to go back and talk to high school students, still do like high school retreats and stuff like that, just because that's such a cool age. But like really felt like God kind of tugging on my heartstrings, and a position came open on the college campus. And it's so funny because I feel like in the church, if you complain about something long enough, God's going to put you in the position to do something about it. And so that was where I was. Like I was complaining, like, oh man, like our kids, that they graduate, they go off to college, and they get disconnected from their faith, and not that's not on, like that wasn't on Reach Out on Campus before me or Crew or any of those ministries. But like, I felt like God was like, hey, you've complained about this long enough. now it's time to go do something about that. And so we've been there for 5.5 years. This is halfway through my 6th year of ministry there. And it's been really, really cool. It's definitely one of those things that I thought in my mind before I left high school ministry. I'm like, it's not that big of a transition, because really for a lot of my students, like I'm going to see them in May when they graduate, and then in September, like for fall, the fall, like we're going to be right there again, you know? And, there's something that happens those 3 months between high school and college and John, you know what I mean? Man, like your world changes big time, especially when you're a residential student at a college, or even just out on your own for the first time. And so like my competence was down really low, but my confidence was up high, And so again, came in, made a lot of mistakes the first year, but God blessed, our faithfulness anyways. And now, like looking back, I could see the foundations that He was setting, in that ministry, and that's kind of led us to where we are today. We're still growing. Like that's the thing. Like I'd like to tell you, after 5.5 years, I've got it down. And same thing with student ministry. Anybody that's listening to this, 2 decades into this thing, I still sometimes go, Lord, I have no clue what I'm doing. What do I do now? And so, we're still growing, we're still learning. But, like that's the one thing that I get excited about, is that we've had some students step up in some really incredible ways.
You just went on a mission trip too, didn't
Yeah,
you?
actually we just got back from a place in Virginia called the Mountain Mission School. Took a group down there ranging from my daughter, who's 8, went, had a middle school student come, several high school students, several college students, and I'm not going to call them older adults, but we'll just call them not college-aged adults, because they may listen to this and get offended if I call them older adults.
There you go.
But yeah, that was an incredible trip, and our students love interacting with a multi-generational church. Like, that's one of the things of being on a college campus, is like you're literally surrounded by 18 to 22-year-olds all day long. And so when you have that opportunity to finally get off the campus and go on a trip or whatever, man, it's funny how they cling to those, relationships with people that are a little bit older or a little bit younger.
Right.
But so we just got back from Virginia. It was a good week, and God's just doing some incredible things. I'll tease this because this is not set in stone yet, but we'll hopefully towards the end of the semester have a big announcement about campus ministry. We're looking into expanding on another campus. I'm not going to say where or anything yet, because that's still, and I probably said too much, but everybody that knows me knows, like, I'm bad at giving Christmas presents because I want to tell you.
Right.
Okay, here's what I got you. It's kind of one of those things for me. So yeah, we're looking at expanding, and I feel like it's time's right. We've got some really great leaders that God has raised up, and they're eager and they're wanting to go and do something new. So we might be growing soon if God provides. If not, we'll wait, we'll bide our time, and we'll see where He's leading us next. So
sounds good. Yeah. I look forward to see what you're getting ready to do.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Please check out aheartforyouth.org and like A Heart for Youth on Facebook. Have a blessed day.